Welkom terug. Nou, saam met my in die ateljee vanoggend is Nicky Creux. Sy is 'n senior lektor aan die Universiteit van Pretoria se departement van plant- en grondwetenskap. Nicky, welcome to GROOTplaas.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming in. We know that climate change is a real thing. Now, what are the projections for climate change in South Africa specifically?
Yeah, so climate change is a real thing, and I think it's a real talking topic when we have a major weather event in South Africa. So I'm sure you all remember the day zero in Cape Town with that big drought up till about 2019.
Yeah.
And then all the headlines. What is happening with climate change? What's happening with the environment? And it is a major question for agriculture today. So there's many excellent researchers across the country actually looking at this, from academic institutions, from industry, from governmental side. And one of the big things they've noticed is that Southern Africa is warming 1.5 to 2 times the rate of the global average. So we're getting warmer faster than the rest of the globe.
Yeah.
And with that, it's going to bring a lot of other things. One of the things they've projected is that the land that's going to be suitable to grow crops is going to start shrinking at some point. And the other thing it's going to bring is more extreme weather events. So we're talking floods, droughts, heat waves, and they're going to be more frequent, more severe, and longer. And so that's the general, I guess, bad news outlook for the situation.
Is it mainly climate change? What about the seasonal variability and the natural long and wet dry cycle that we normally get in South Africa?
Yeah, so I've had that question before. Is it one or the other?
Yeah.
And the answer is it's both.
Oh, goodness.
Right? So South Africa has a very significant seasonal variation where one season looks completely different to the next.
Yeah.
That's not the same in other parts of the world. So there's some places that have much less seasonal variation. And in a place like that, it's very easy for people in their daily lives or in yields to see the influence of the hotter, drier climates as climate change progresses. But when we come to a place like South Africa, where we have these massive seasonal variations driven by wet, dry cycles and things like that, it's actually harder to see in that noise that gradual uptick as the temperatures change. And so, you know, I think it's really both. It's not one or the other.
Yeah. Now, your team recently did a study on how climate may have already shifted. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I had a postdoctoral fellow in my group, Dr. Mangani, and he decided, well, we've been talking about climate change for a long time. So can we already see signatures of change in our farming regions? So he took 30 years of data from about 1986 to 2016, and he looked for, is there any trends in changes? And he saw a number of things. So he looked at 3 different provinces. It was in Mpumalanga, Free State, and in Potchefstroom. Yeah. I mean, Northwest. And what he found was that across most of those, so he did 6 districts, 2 per province, and across most of those, he found that the temperatures have increased already. Sometimes just the average, but more surprising or frightening, I guess, is actually the number of days above 35 or high heat days have increased. So suggesting more heat days. Yeah, or heat waves. So that's the one thing. He also found there were some things where districts had specific changes. So, for example, Bethlehem seems to be getting rains later, whereas somewhere like Lydenburg seems to be having their rains ending earlier. So this suggests that, you know, provincial level predictions are good for policy and planning, but perhaps district level predictions are going to be more useful to the guys on the ground at that point.
Yes.
So he then did a second study where we said, okay, so we can see these signatures of change already. Can we extrapolate what happens 50 or 100 years from now if they keep going?
Yes.
And so he teamed up with Prof. Gunn from the University of Wisconsin in the States, and they projected modeling looking at 2 cultivars, a medium and a short variety, 2 different climate scenarios, so medium and a high-risk climate scenario. And then they looked at what happens if we plant at different planting dates.
Yeah.
And one of the concerning things that we saw was that in the far future, at what is considered the optimal planting date in the regions we are looking at, it looks like the plants when they tassel and silk, so the maize plants when they're flowering, they're going to be exposed to more days above 35 degrees Celsius. And that's pretty bad news for most plants because they're most sensitive to heat when there's high temperature. So that is probably going to limit some of our yields as we go forward.
Nicky, just hold that thought. This is so interesting. Ons het net onlangs met Container Park gesels en kom ons vind gou 'n bietjie uit hoe hulle die industrie op horings neem.
Container Park, endless possibilities.
Ek gesels vandag met Marinda Roos. Nou sy is die bemarkingsassistent by Container Park en ons kuier 'n bietjie hierso by hulle pragtige opset. Marinda, baie welkom by GROOTplaas.
Baie dankie, baie welkom en dankie vir die geleentheid.
Dankie, ons is so opgewonde. Nou, Container Park vier hierdie jaar sy 25ste bestaanjaar. Dis ongelooflik. Vertel vir my 'n bietjie watter lesse het julle oor die afgelope paar jaar geleer wat julle eintlik maar van baba skoene na tiener hardloopskoene gevat het?
Jo, ons het 'n groot stap gevat. Ons van humble beginnings wat ons af begin het ons gegroei van 'n maatskappy wat actually met vervoer te doen gehad het. En eventually het ons 'n paar containers in die hande gekry en van daar af het dit verhuurings en die verkope van containers geword. En tot so 7 jaar terug het ons besluit vir ons kort bietjie iets anders in die maatskappy en ons het besluit by die ombouing van containers wat meer vir 'n niche mark is.
Nou, Marinda, julle bied 'n reeks dienste aan en dit sluit verkope, verhuurings en omskakeling van hierdie
skeepvraghouers.
Nou, ek wil graag by jou weet, hoe omskep julle hierdie staalstrukture in iets so wonderlik wat in soveel industrieë inpas, insluitend op plase, né?
Absoluut. Dit kom met baie laatnagte, baie kreatiwiteit, ons brainwave en die beste idees kom gewoonlik laat in die nag. So ons is 'n hele span betrokke wat met die kliënt sal gesels, hoor wat is die kliënt se behoefte en daarvolgens sal ons vir die kliënt, of dit nou 'n boer is of 'n kontrakteur is, gaan ons sy houer vir ons skep. Ons kyk dan na verskillende opsies van kantore, store, ablisieblokke. Ons is baie betrokke deesdae met uitstallings, waar ons vir die mense uitstallings maak. En dan die lekker ding is die akkommodasie en die omskeping van pragtskeephouers in huise.
Ek kan dink, want ek het pragtig lyk dit hier agter ons. Ek sal hier kom bly.
Dis baie mense kan nie glo dat hulle actually in 'n skeepvraghouer staan nie. En die spasie wat hulle beleef, is ongelooflik.
Sê vir my, kan jy voel dat die aanvraag na julle dienste en julle produk optel?
Verseker.
Ja?
Definitief. Gereeld trek ons analytics, stats wat ook al. Daar's 'n groot aanvraag vir dit. En dit verander die hele tyd ook. Daar's baie kreatiewe mense daar wat ander voorstelle het wat ons nie standaard produkte het nie, maar ons sal nog steeds vir daai kliënte wat hulle spesifiek wil hê doen en ons omskep en ons bou die houer vir hulle.
Sê vir my ook, wat doen julle om oplossings te gee in verskeie industrieë? Want dis tog wat julle is. Julle diens is, ons is hier om 'n oplossing te bring vir julle, né?
Presies. Dit verskil definitief van kliënt tot kliënt. Ons kyk en bepaal wat is die kliënt se behoefte, waarna is hulle op soek en volgens dit sal ons aan die houer vir jou ombou of aan vir jou bied.
Ja. Sê vir my, en hier mag jy 'n bietjie spog. Wat onderskei Container Park van julle mededingers?
Nou vra jy vir my die lekkerste vraag, want ons is ontsettend trots om deel te wees van Container Park. Vir 25 jaar het ons die kennis, ons het die tegniese kennis, ons het 'n verskriklike groot span kreatiewe mense wat baie passie het vir wat ons doen, ons is lief vir ons produkte, ons lewer verskriklike goeie diens. Ons het 7 takke reg oor die land. Ons hoofkantoor is in Bloemfontein en ons fabriek, dis waar die houers gebou word en omskep word. En wat ons basies vir die mense daar buite kan bied is endless possibilities.
Dit is regtig lekker om dit te hoor en ek wil by jou weet, hoe kan mense julle in die hande kry?
Daar's verskillende maniere. Kontak ons gerus op ons webtuiste www.containerpark.co.za. Gaan volg ons op ons social media en gaan kyk gerus, kom kyk, vind tyd meer oor Container Park.
Dankie Marinda. Dis net om jou te herinner, as jy meer wil uitvind, besoek hulle webblad by www.containerpark.co.za.
Container Park, endless possibilities.
Ek gesels steeds met Nicky Creux en sy is van die Universiteit van Pretoria. Nicky, we are talking about planting dates, and this is so interesting because climate change is having an effect. When is that going to affect planting dates in South African agriculture?
Yeah, so from our previous study, we realized that planting dates are, it's really important for us to keep monitoring them because we don't know how it's going to change in the future given climate change projections. I think it's not that it's going to change today, and my team has a lot of, a large research project going with the University of the Free State and the ARC, where we looked at planting dates across the country for maize and sunflower. And so far, the current planting dates are still the high-yielding planting dates in most regions that we've looked at. But I think it's also important to just highlight with climate change discussions that producers and farmers work on a very different time scale when you're talking with climate change scientists. So producers and farmers are interested in the next season, what the next growing cycle is going to look like. Climate change scientists are talking 50 to 100 years in the future. How do we secure this production level for your grandchildren or your grandchildren's children in the future?
Yeah, that's very interesting because I can imagine the timescales are different. But if, let's say, planting dates do change in the next 20 years, how's that practically going to look? Is it going to be a one announcement, everybody's on board, or do you think it's going to be a very organic, people looking at their data and realizing, okay, now I've got to make a change? Yeah,
so I think it's going to be a lot more organic because, I mean, our farmers are used to a lot of changes. We spoke about the variation already. And they're continually adapting as things change. And so it's a lot more gradual. I mean, one of the things we saw in our research was that while the temperatures and the climates have changed, the yields have continued to go up.
Yes.
And part of that is embracing new technology.
Absolutely.
So during that time period that Dr. Mangani looked at, there was mechanization, more tractors and things that came in. Also GMOs came in, so that kept bumping up the yields.
Yes.
So I think as long as we, I think it's going to be this gradual thing where people are adopting new practices as we discover more of how to deal with this.
Extremely. Tell me, we've got 1 minute left. A final thought that you would, that needs to be remembered.
Sure. I think the big thing in South African agriculture at the moment is that there's a lot of information out there, but it's housed in different silos. There's some information in the industry, there's some with the farmers, there's some with government, some with the universities, and it doesn't connect very well at the moment. And I think especially open free access to climate data would help everyone. It would make our projections way better, more accurate. We'd be able to understand the research we're doing better, and it helps the farmer on the ground plan better at the end of the day.
And that's what we need, hey?
Yep.
Thank you for your knowledge this morning. I really enjoyed it, and good luck with the further research.